I think we did a pretty good job so far.
April 1st, 2006, Columbus, Ohio, around 1:55 a.m. Three friends are out having a night of partying after a long week of college finals. One of them had even pulled 2 all-nighters to finish his. As the friends continue to drink and talk, one gets separated from the group. His disappearance goes unnoticed. After the bar eventually closes and his friends wait outside for him, he doesn't leave the bar. They simply assume that he left earlier on in the night when they lost sight of him and head on home. Little did these two know that their missing friend would eventually become the most notorious missing person in Ohio State history. Hello and welcome to MediaWipe Vanished. I am your host, Connor Bray, and tonight we're going to be getting into one of the most infamous missing persons of all time, Brian Shaffer. However, before we discuss the night of his disappearance, I believe it's important to establish who Brian is. Brian, at the time of his disappearance, was a 27-year-old sophomore medical student at Ohio State University. Brian was a rather social guy, having been captain of the tennis team back in high school and also having been in a band. His love of music was so great, in fact, that he wrote on his MySpace page, quote, "I really love music, and this whole doctor thing is just really a job. Only temporary, till I get my band together and put out a record." So yeah, very musically inclined guy. Unfortunately, not everything in his life was going so swimmingly. A month before he disappeared, he lost his mother, one of his closest family members, to myelodysplasia, an incredibly rare form of cancer located in the bone marrow. Her death hit him hard, to say the least, even causing him to question some of his relationships at the time. However, her death also brought Brian closer together with his father, Randy, and little brother, Derek. Now that we've kind of established who Brian is as a person, let's dive into the night of his disappearance. Before heading out for a night of drinking with his buddies, however, he had dinner at the local Outback Steakhouse with Randy, Derek, and Derek's girlfriend. He had even delayed his plans a couple of hours so they could have this dinner, reportedly saying, "I have to be there for my dad, you know?" During this dinner, he also invited his little brother and his girlfriend to come out with him later for the night. They declined, however, as they had tickets to a show at the local comedy club and would be too tired after the show to join. This is a decision that Derek would later regret. After this dinner with his family, he was joined by a buddy of his by the name of William Clint Florence. Starting at 9, they began to bar hop down the University District, ordering a shot of hard liquor at each location, eventually stopping at the Red Star until midnight. It was at this point that Clint called his girlfriend Meredith Reed to come pick them up and bring them back to the Ugly Tuna Saloona. She arrived there at about 12:30, before getting them to the tuna around 12:45. Notably, the group lost Brian around 1 a.m. for a bit, before he reappeared at 1:15, the most famous security footage angle catching him at this time. 40 minutes later, at 1:55, Brian is seen on camera one final time, talking to 2 girls just outside the bar. After this, the camera captures him walking away from the girls, however, not towards the stairs or escalator, but either back into the bar itself, or to a service entrance which was located directly under the camera, just out of view. This is the last time that Brian Shaffer was seen. Now here's the part where we get our hands dirty. There are many theories surrounding this case due to its notoriety. So for our sanity, I think we should start with the most recent one. Behind the Ugly Tuna Saloona is a parking garage, and during 2006, this parking garage was under construction. Also of note are the 4 emergency exits leading out the back of the Saloona towards said construction site. Are you starting to get the picture? The theory posits that Brian, while intoxicated, had left one of these emergency exits and fallen into the currently under construction rubble, burying him alive underneath it all, with the city covering up so there would be no bad press for the new parking garage. I mean, things similar to this have happened before, so it could be possible, right? Well, there are some complications with it. One, you'd think that someone on staff would have noticed a drunken man stumbling through an emergency exit. If not, they would have at least heard him, because drunk people aren't exactly known for being quiet. It is highly unlikely that this is the case, especially due to the FBI still believing Brian to be alive. And not only that, but you'd think that the FBI would catch on if there was some kind of cover-up going on. It's their job. Let's move on. This theory posits that Brian had disappeared that night to start a new life. Now, while it sounds impossible, there is some evidence to back this up. For example, there is an unwatched freight elevator just off camera that he could have used to escape. Not only this, but he also had the money to run away. When Brian's mother passed away, he was granted $20,000 by life insurance. People have started new lives on less. The biggest evidence in this theory, though, is a quote from Brian's cousin, Dan Shaffer, saying that Brian could swing through extremes. For example, after being involved in a party-heavy lifestyle in 1999, he was arrested for a DUI and spent 3 days in jail. After that, he completely turned his life around and was big into exercise for around 6 months. It seems like if he did snap and disappear willingly, it would not have been out of character. Plus, remember how he said this whole doctor thing was just a job until he could put out a record? That's a motive. The only thing is, there's a few holes in this theory. First is that, since he is one of the most well-known missing people in history, it would be extremely difficult to stay out of the public eye for 19 years, which is the amount of time that he's been missing. Also, he and his girlfriend at the time, Alexis Wagner, had a flight scheduled to Miami the following Monday, where rumor says he would have proposed. Why would a made man just abandon his family and friends like that? Still, this is probably the most possible theory out of the two that we've discussed so far. With all that being said, let's discuss our final theory. For all those unaware, the smiley face killer is a proposed serial killer by 2 former FBI detectives. This proposition was made in response due to the trend of many young, wealthy white men being found near water, as well as smiley face graffiti being found nearby. This theory goes that the smiley face killer killed Brian, and it doesn't make much, if at all, sense. First, there isn't much evidence to prove that Brian is actually dead, since no body was ever found. Second, the FBI doesn't believe that the smiley face killer even exists, with the deaths linked to them being only coincidental. This is probably the least likely out of the 3. However, there are many more theories on his disappearance, so if you'd like a part 2, please let me know in the comments below. As it stands, Brian Shaffer remains a missing person to this very day. Like mentioned earlier, the authorities still believe him to be alive. If you believe you've seen Brian, I urge you to call your local non-emergency police hotline. Brian, if you're somehow watching this, come back to your family and end this mystery on a good note. That being said, thank you for joining me tonight. Until the next episode, I appear missing.